Welcome to Open Mic on Giant TV Niagara. I'm the host, Mike Balsam. Today we're talking about Port Colborne, and in studio with me, to my right, the new mayor of Port Colborne, Bill Steele. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
And a new regional councilor as well, Barbara Butters.
Thanks. That's good to be here.
Great to have you, both of you. Both of you have lots of experience. 20 years serving Ward 4.
Yes,
Barbara,
sir.
And about 18
17 serving Ward 1 constituents. Yeah.
So you two have worked together for a long time.
We actually got elected in 1997 together. So we were a pair of newbies starting out back in the day, and got to know each other then and became friends. And
yeah. Big thing is working well together. Barb and I work very well together.
Bill, why the decision to go for the mayor's seat now?
Mike, it's April. Come on. That was back in October.
Well, back in October, but you know what I mean for this term. Why now?
Why now? I mean, I think it was a good time for me. You know, I did step down for business reasons, and my business partner at the time was retiring, and my son had started working for me. So the last term where I did step off from being Ward 1 councillor, I didn't put my hat in for mayor because I just had too many personal things going on with that. So I had to get that house in order. I'm always been very involved in our community. So there was a number of boards and president of minor hockey, coaching. So I kind of spent my first 2 years of the 4 years I was off getting out of those organizations, because unless I'm going to do something at 100%, I'm not going to do it. So, you know, it's not fair to people to be part of an organization where I can't attend. Because being mayor is, and also serving in the region like Barb does, it's a big job. You know, it's all day, every day.
Even though
7 days a week. So
the remuneration is not
well,
full time, right? But it is a full time job for you.
Yeah. It's part-time pay. I mean, but I didn't do it for the pay. I don't need the pay. I'll tell you that right now. I'm very comfortable in my business life, but it is service to the community. So I really took those 4 years to re-energize, get my business in order. I've got a great staff. I got a super son that runs the operation now when I'm not there. So, you know, I had to get my life in order to do this for the citizens of Port Colborne. So in stepping forward, this was a good time for me. And, you know, I'm energized, and we've got a lot of things we want to do. And just like Barb is at the region, I mean, these are great things. These are great times for us. So,
Barb, you made the decision after so many years as a Ward 4 councillor. At first, when you announced, you thought you were going to be running against the incumbent.
yes,
And he dropped out of the race.
yes.
Was one of the reasons why you put your foot in because of the controversy that was happening surrounding him?
Oh, for sure. For sure. On council, I had been following the regional antics, I'll call them, and escapades pretty closely. And the more that went on, the more disturbing it became. And in all truthfulness, I was really thinking I was just going to retire, not run in Ward 4, just retire and disappear into the sunset. And then one more thing happened that just made my head almost exploded, I guess. And I just said, you know what, I'm doing it.
What was that one thing?
It was when they used public monies to put out a brochure. And it was very politically motivated brochure, in my opinion.
A brochure that was on behalf of the region, basically, paid for.
Yeah.
But really didn't
for
promote.
Individual councillors.
That's right.
And ours wasn't the only one who did that. But I think there was 3 of them that did that. So it just really, it made me angry, is what it did. And then that was just it for me. I said, you know what, I'm doing it. And I don't care what the outcome is. I'm just going to give it my best shot and give people an option. And that was how I went into it, was just to give people an alternative to what we've had.
How did you feel when he dropped out of the race?
Nothing. I didn't feel anything in particular. There was 3 other gentlemen that signed up. So to me, I was all in.
How did you feel? Can I ask you another question then? How did you feel when he was appointed to a new job with the NPCA?
Not overly happy.
Yeah, makes sense.
Not overly happy.
What's the learning curve moving from all of your experience with Port Colborne, moving into now representing Port Colborne at the region?
Well, the interesting thing is, I'm really grateful for my years in Port Colborne because it really taught me a lot of things. So there's lots of things that are familiar. There's lots of things that are different. So there's definitely a learning curve there. Like, if anybody tells you there isn't, then good for them. But I think that there is. But I know that my years in Port Colborne was a good preparation ground for this. So it's not overwhelming. It's exciting. and I like to learn different things anyway. So it's all good in my world.
The two of you obviously have built up a good working relationship over the years that you served on council together.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever go head to head on an issue?
Oh, we butt heads every now and again.
What was that about?
Oh my God.
I don't even
Anything
know.
in particular?
Probably the price of pencils in the day.
I could have been.
You know,
Nothing in particular. Just
No,
there's always
there-
things
there-
that come up
yeah.
that you don't always see eye to eye on. But you know what? The beauty of those years on council really was, for me, from my perspective, was there was always the respect for one another. So we could all go toe to toe during a council meeting and debate whatever it was that needed to be talked about. And when that meeting was over and the votes were counted, we left that room still friends and usually heading to for an adult beverage somewhere.
Now, Bill,
Yeah.
the two of you representing Port Colborne at the region, when you sit at those meetings, are you thinking about Port Colborne issues and how they can be applied at the region, or are you thinking as the region as a whole? What goes through your mind?
no, the region as a whole, which can affect Port Colborne. There are issues with Port Colborne. A lot of those things, Barb and I work together on, and we can do that behind the scenes with staff. The things are going to happen anyways. Whatever's on their project list to be done, we can, make sure we're up to date and what's going to be done when. There are committees that we both sit on that we can bring things forward. But as far as the major issues, like it is a region-wide decision. I mean, what can affect somebody in Lincoln or West Lincoln, Fort Erie, can still affect people in Port Colborne, and transit being one of them. We talked about that earlier before we went on air. So the transit issue affects everybody. So we got to think regionally in pretty much all issues, but there will be those local issues that we do from time to time. Maybe pound the table at a regional council meeting, but on the whole, most of that stuff you can get done, on a day-to-day basis with staff, as long as we know that it's an item that may be budgeted for.
Why is it taking so long to get transit to where we want it to be as a region? Is it the money? Is it all about money?
No, I don't know. I mean, I sat back in around 2005 on the regional transit committee, and that's kind of was the original formulation of putting this all together and having one transit authority across Niagara, expanding services, expanding routes. I really can't answer that. Me being away for 4 years, you kind of watch what happens, but without kind of being directly involved, it's kind of tough to read. I mean, Barb may have a better answer, but I think it's now moving faster. Personally, it's not fast enough. I think, the big three have to give it up, get it in whether it's a regional transit authority, however you want to call it, but one regional run transit authority that owns all the buses, operates all the routes, has one fee, so on and so forth. You can't have three trying to, with the region having their portion of it.
Right.
Now there's four. No, have one. We only need to look at the region of Waterloo. So back in the early 2000s, when amalgamation was talked about in those days, they very quickly put their regional transit together with the city of Waterloo, the city of Kitchener, Cambridge, that whole area. So, that was kind of a catalyst. Now we're going kind of through the same thing with the governance issue here. But really we should learn by our recent mistakes that, somebody's done it, about 20 years ago now. It should be pretty easy for us. They were very similar to us. So let's get all these things merged. Let's get them together. Let's get one transit authority and move along and get that put to bed. Like, to be quite honest, hopefully by the end of the year that's done, or even early into next year. But if at the end of 4 years it's not, it's regional councilor's got to look in the mirror and say, this wasn't a good job. It's got to get done now. I mean, it's the only way to do it, to save money and to get the routes going across Niagara. I mean, you've got Kevin Gibson, the mayor of Waynfleet, saying, look, get this done. We know we're not going to have routes in Waynfleet right away, but at some point in time it'll come. But we're behind this because we just see the benefit to all of Niagara getting this done, especially with GO coming down here.
Right.
You got to start marrying this stuff together so that you can move people.
Barbara, do you think that we're under maybe a sense of urgency with, the provincial government trying to review our Niagara region, and we don't know what our governance structure is going to look like? Does that put a little bit of more pressure on us?
I try to keep the two things separate. I don't really worry about the provincial review. They're going to do that review. If there's things that we can do better, then let's do them better. I have no issue with that.
Do you think
We
they're
have
looking at the transit picture as
Well,
part
I'm
of that
hoping if
review?
they're looking at the transit picture, they're going to look at it in a very positive light because it's shown how the municipalities can work together. And I think that from the past council and coming into this one, that was made pretty clear that there was that desire to move this forward. And however long it took, we sit with a group of people in council now that want to work together. My whole idea is this, just for me. I want to try to do the right thing for the right reason at the right time, hopefully. And that just is how I want to operate myself, I guess.
Do you see the provincial government maybe forcing the transit issue in whatever kind of governance structure that they put together? Basically saying, St. Catharines, well, in Niagara Falls, you're going to lose control over your own transit. And force
I
it
think
into
we
a
have a
regional?
pretty good handle on it, and I don't know why they would feel that desire to interfere with it because we're on a good track. If we weren't on a good track, I'd say fine, come in and work your magic if you can. But we're on a pretty good track. So,
and Mike, that's all part of it. I mean, this whole partnership issue, personally, I don't really feel amalgamation is going to really come into it. I don't. That's just how I personally feel. But I think they want us to be better partners across Niagara. And when I did serve with Barb before, Port Colborne was very good at that and utilizing a lot of things at their region, but with also other municipalities. Port Colborne, actually, we're on a venture right now with Waynfleet and Fort Erie with regards to our drainage. And with the lack of drainage engineers across the province, there's less and less, and there's less companies that are actually doing it. So we're looking at the three of us partnering together. So those things are out there. I mean, the trade corridor up and down the canal, the four mayors, Walter, Terry, Frank, sorry,
Okay.
and myself.
Yes.
I mean, we've come to an understanding that we want to get this thing going. So, this whole partnership issue, buying power and things like that. I mean, the region's had it for a while now, but to even grow it greater, I think that's things that the province wants to see. I mean, obviously they want to see less politicians. In certain cases, they're probably right. But I mean, I think a lot of that needs to be made in Niagara or made in Port Colborne for the sake of the number of politicians that are in Port Colborne. Those things have to come. Transit is an issue, though. I mean, you look at other, and I'll go back to Waterloo. I mean, that's just one example, but it happened very quickly, and it works very well. We've taken our sweet time on it, and I know what Barb's saying, got to do it the right way at the right time. But I think we're there. I think we're really at that cusp. But I think they're looking at that, saying, "Come on, guys, you got to be better partnerships in this." And putting everybody together just makes common sense, and it makes economic sense.
Right.
But that partnership issue is going to be huge with this governance when it comes down. So.
Let's shift gears, talk about the NPCA. You're sitting on the NPCA right now. Barbara, you've had experience on that board as well. Gail Wood now in her position and trying to turn some things around. Are we making headway? Are they becoming a little bit more of an organization that we can understand, that we can value, that we can see a lot less controversy?
Well, I think the current board and the will of the regional council with the members they put on this board, and some public members out there that, it's turned right around. I mean, the level of confidence now with staff and they're not walking on eggshells every day they come into the office or go to work. That really started with the new board. But as soon as we brought Gail on board, that was kind of that catalyst that just, everybody just went, whoa. And you talk to staff now at our meetings and the response, and the fact that staff are actually at our board meetings now, where before it was kind of a very limited amount of staff, bodes well for Gail, but it also bodes well for our senior staff members. And the meetings that we have on the committee meetings and things like that, I mean, it's going really, really well. So the whole atmosphere has changed at the NPCA, and I really think controversy's gone. I mean, if really somebody's looking for controversy, they're trying to make it up because it's not there. You've got a great board that's working well together. We've got the governance committee. I do chair the committee that we're for the new CAO search. So we're right in the midst of that. So it's just nothing but good things coming out of this. There's been programs that were cut by the last board and the last senior management that we've brought back in. The restoration program is now brought back in, so they're hiring more people for that. So and we're going through our normal things, the summer hirings of students and part-time seasonal help with regards to, Long Beach Park and Chippewa. And
So
Benbrook
we're
and
back
things
to
like that.
conservation then. We're back to the actual
Exactly.
goals of this organization. Barbara,
That's right.
how did it get to that point? I know there's a lot of talk about, political backrooming and things like that, but how did it actually end up where the focus of that organization?
Well, when I was on the board, that was when Vance Badaway was the mayor, and he wasn't able to go on it, and so he gave me an opportunity to go on that board. So I think it was like 06 to 2010. And on the board then, and I was a newbie, so there was lots of things I had to learn as well. There was really good people on the board. We had a Doug Ransom was the chair. He's a great guy. It seemed to me that there was always an element of, some of them were very pro-development, and then there was those of us who were the other way. And, I got called a tree hugger, and that's okay because, I don't
You
care.
like trees?
I do. So there was that element there, but there was balance.
Yeah.
And that was the key. There was balance.
Right.
And once things changed into the next term, the balance seemed to go haywire. And Doug Ransom was no longer the chair, and there was a different chair, and then it really started to slide.
Do you think it started to slide after that 2010? Or was it later?
No, I think in 2010, I think the die was starting to be set. I think there was things going on even back then
Even
that
before that last term.
Oh, for sure. That's what I believe.
Right.
That things were starting to get lined up in ducks in a row, and just the way certain things panned out. And I was on Port Colborne Council then, and it was one of those things where you would read something in the paper and you go, ooh. And it just made you kind of cringy, I guess. And you weren't, but it wasn't like definitive or something that you could really hang your hat on it. You just kind of think, oh, this bear's watching.
Well,
type of deal.
As a resident, I don't think I paid any attention to
Probably not.
those four letters, NPCA, until I stepped onto one of the properties and saw the sign. I don't think I understood what the organization was, wouldn't have been able to name any of the board members. And it turned around over the last 4 years where they were in the news every week.
And that's not a good thing.
No.
No, and it wasn't a good thing for that organization. And to lose the trust, the way the trust was lost, it really personally made me angry, and it made me sad, because there was so many good people working at the NPCA. So many of them were ushered out the door. I mean, literally hundreds of years of experience during that purge. It was just awful. Just awful.
And it's one of the things that you spoke out against, Bill, when you were taking on the role.
Oh, exactly. I mean, change had to be made, change from the top down. Let our staff do their job. They're the professionals at it. We're just board members. We've got a good mix of people that know a lot of the concepts about it. Some of us are more business minded as far as we know how businesses run. So we know how to operate a business or operate an NPCA. We know how budgeting is done, how you hire people, how you fire people or part ways with people, things like that. And then you've got those that know the ins and outs of the workings of the NPCA or any conservation authority. We've got a member on that's a member from Hamilton, public member, and he was a former employee, but he brings a wealth of information. So you've got to have a good diverse board. I mean, that you can't have all one-sided or all the other. It's got to be very diverse and a good meeting of the minds. But one thing I said to Gail when our first meeting came, I said, look, Gail, one thing I don't want to see is anything on the front page. I said, I'd rather see us buried on page 24 because it's a good news, because we ran a great event in Binbrook, or Long Beach had a fantastic summer of camping and fun for families and things like that. That's what I want to read about the NPCA, or a great project in a wooded area or forest, or a stream reconstruction, or whatever it may be that we do. That's what I want to read about. I don't want to read about the stuff that went on before. It's not why we're there. Yeah. Like, it should be an organization that you really, like you really don't know about.
Right.
Unless you use the facilities.
Exactly.
And if it's like that, then you know it's working well, as far as I'm concerned.
One of the things regional councilor, or council, I should say, was, I guess, dragged into in the last little while, the whole debate about mental health focusing on the Burgoyne Bridge. We're at that point right now where we know, I think, that the barrier has to go up. What was your take on what some of the other councillors spoke out about when it came to that decision?
Well, mental health was actually a big part of my platform. So in Port Colborne, we were lucky. We just made an agreement with Pathstone to come in and do some youth mental health in Port Colborne. So on a 1 day a week to start, we actually partnered with Pathstone and Ford Arenas. So I'm well aware what's going on in that area. It really took a good conversation with Walter Senzik, Mayor of St. Catharines, and I'll retell the story. He was driving by, and he was going across the new bridge, and he saw a young fellow kind of pacing, and he looked at him, and he turned his car around and came back, and the kid was just sitting there. And so Walter went and pulled over, walked down the bridge, introduced himself. I'm Walter Senzik. I'm the mayor of the city of St. Catharines. Is there something going on here? You know, do you want to talk or whatever? So he sat down beside the young fellow. They spoke for a while, and that young fellow was there to end his life.
Right.
So it's really eye-opening. And really that's when I kind of turned on the subject, because it's not that I was against it. I was thinking, you know, if you're going to take that kind of money, you know, should we be putting it all into services? But the unfortunate part about that location is the fact that it's become that magnet. It's always happened there. We know that. Former Mayor Rigby stood up and said that.
Always.
You probably read about it more than you used to. It was, you know,
well,
either wasn't talked about.
I do think there used to be an unwritten sort of rule in the media that we didn't publicize that.
And now it's almost glorified at times. I mean, that's the way you kind of look at it. You know, you hate to say it that way, but that's really what it is, and it's sad. So when I spoke at Public Works, and I know there was those that you know, were they really truly against it, or they just didn't like the amount of money being spent? You kind of had to read between the lines. I came at it from a different tact. Look, we have an issue here. It's not just people ending their life at that location. There's a major highway below that's 4 lanes. You know, all of a sudden somebody falls.
More people are in danger.
Does it affect a family in a car, or a single person in a car, or a commercial vehicle, whatever it may be, motorcyclist, anything like that? So you've got to look at that aspect. To me, the barrier makes sense for the right reasons. But also, I gave a challenge to those on the Public Works Committee to go to Public Health and say, this is a puzzle. It has to go hand in hand that we do this, and we look
go hand in hand
with mental health
initiatives.
So whatever initiatives we're going to do at Public Health and as a region and as a government, that all has to fit together. It's all got to tie together. Yes, there's other areas in the region these things happen. We can deal with those as they come up. But if this is the one that's being glorified, this is in a location that's being a magnet. But as we fix that one and we move ahead and we tie it in with mental health services and we can do things better with our citizens that are having issues, it could stop the person from going to the next location. So, you know, it's not going to happen overnight, but we need all that stuff to go hand in hand. So that's the way I came at it, and I supported it, and I'll support it again tonight at our meeting, and I would stand up and say the same things, because it is a huge issue, you know, and all of us in families have these issues. So, you know, that's my take on it.
Barbara, related to mental health, homelessness, and affordable housing issues, and obviously, you know, the region with the affordable housing being at the top of their list of many things on their agenda. What are the solutions, and what are we looking at, and maybe how does that relate to what we have here in Port Colborne as well?
Well, I don't think there's one solution. I think it's going to be kind of a toolbox of solutions. I think across the region, what will work in St. Catharines isn't necessarily going to be the solution for Port Colborne. So I think it needs to be really specific to the community. And I think the region, we're on the right track. We just had a presentation to do with core housing needs. Port Colborne and Welland has actually got the 2 highest, Port 16.2 and Welland I think 16.1. So there is definitely a need in both of our communities, Port and Welland. The solution may not look the same even between Welland and Port Colborne. There's certainly opportunities to. There's probably more opportunities than we even realize. And actually, at the planning standing committee meeting, Councilor Woodavine, he got up and I really liked what he had to say, because I kind of think the same way, really out of the box thinking. We need to look at all the different ways, just not building big buildings, but say a person has a home that they could convert. And we need to make that easier for
Right.
that to be done. So
Right.
so there's an avenue right there where that could be a possibility. There's a whole movement with tiny houses. Some communities may work better in their community. They may have the land, they may have the space, all the things that make sense to do that. So I don't think there's just one solution. I think that there's a number of them. And there's certainly federal dollars that is coming down the pike to help with that. So for myself, I'm hopeful that we're going to be on a better track, because we have to. That's the bottom line. We have to. People should not be couch surfing. There's somebody called me to try to help a lady who basically, because of medical reasons, she couldn't stay in her apartment because it had to do with stairs.
Right.
She needed not to be, either in an elevator building or on a ground floor. This lady is on an oxygen tank, sleeping on her son's couch. She worked hard all her life. She shouldn't have to live like that.
That's sad.
So in trying to help this lady and connect her up to some services, and my fingers are crossed that she will be. So these are the kind of things that we deal with. Like, that's real people. That's real stuff. It isn't just about numbers and statistics. Real people.
Yes.
So,
Bill, back to some things happening in the city, in Port Colborne. Canal Days is going to be your first one as the mayor.
Yeah.
So
we're excited.
How excited are you about that?
Yeah, we got a great committee. We're going to make a number of changes this year. We're actually going to open up West Street so you can see the ships on the canal. I mean, that was my biggest complaint while my years serving, and staff have reacted well to the input of both council and myself and their own ideas. I'm big with our staff coming up with the ideas. I mean, at the inauguration, Barb was there. Think outside that box, and they really have. They've stepped up. So you're going to see some changes. This year's not going to be grand scale changes. I don't think we need that. But there's going to be some really good changes, and then as the years go on, there's a number of issues we want to bring forward from our Canal Days committee. So, our entertainment being down at Lakeview Park, which was taken there last year. I gave kudos to the previous council for taking that initiative. I think it was the best thing they did.
that was crazy fun.
Yeah, it was. It's a nice, comfortable location. You're running the water with
People
the boats,
loved
and I mean,
it.
that's Port Colborne, right? And then opening up West Street to our tall ships and other ships that are in the Buffalo Fireboat and things like that. We're trying to upscale our vendors area, so we're working on that. You may see a small part of that happening this year, so we're moving forward with that. Our patio on West Street is going to grow. It's going to be larger. Both Giant and Country 89 are involved with that, so we really appreciate the support from our local radio stations. So, there's going to be those nuances that happen. The museum's still going to be there doing what it does every year, which is great, and all on the marine heritage. The kite show is going to return to its location last year off of Clally Street West. Mm-hmm. Our car show is going to move to the Valet Center, out to the ball field area, the grassy area. That's something that they came to us with, and a change. We were open to change for them. We knew that it just didn't work where they were last year. But we tried it. The city tried it, and it worked for the kite show, but it didn't work for the car show. So in our first meeting with them, we came to an agreement. So they're working with our staff now in preparation to get the cars out on the grassy area there.
Sounds great. It's a unique festival, with that focus on marine heritage.
Yes.
Fantastic festival. I stumbled on a website really quickly today. I just want to bring this up. Something called blessthecity.ca, talking about derelict buildings.
Yes.
Is that something that concerns the two of you, Barbara?
Well, I think that was an initiative from St. James, St. Brendan Anglican Church, and I think it was just remarkable how it brought people together to improve that corner area. So I love to see improvements in the city, and I love to see it when people take charge of something like that and open it up to so many different possibilities. It really is a beautiful thing.
Well, it must make you feel good as a
It
regional
does.
councilor, as a mayor, that people are becoming a little more interested in Port Colborne.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that project I'm involved with because it's kitty corner to my office, so I
Yeah.
see it every day. The former vacant lot was the Steele block, which was erected by my family back in 19-teens or 20s, and then the building was sold off when it was the old Citizens Press, and then it burnt to the ground. We didn't own it then, so it did sit vacant for the longest time. People parked there. Then the owner that owned the kind of the derelict building that sat next to it fenced it off so nobody could use it. So when the church bought the whole package, they picked up the building, the lot, and then a smaller building out back. So they have a garage out back, which
For the kids.
which kids learn how to repair cars and motorcycles.
Right.
So I can't remember the gentleman's name that does it. I do apologize,
Can't think
but
of
he
his
does a great job there. They've refurbished the building that's there, so it faces well to the park side. But if you go in, there's all kinds of artisans in there. So and some very famous artisans. And then the parquet, which they've started, so the groundwork has been done, so the grass is there, the concrete. So my office, and along with one of my insurance companies, partnered, and we donated money towards it. And we talked to some other people that actually donated towards it. So the community came together very well. A number of businesses in the downtown core helped to fund that. So they're always looking for more funding. So if you're out there, please donate to it, because it's a great cause. So this summer, I believe they're going to start erecting their fencing around it, the nice ornamental fencing, and then
Right.
get their gardens and trees and benches and things like that as they move along with their funding. So,
Beautiful.
it's such a small thing in our community, but it's a great thing.
Huge
I mean,
impact.
it is. I mean, you drive by that corner now, you've got the Belmont Hotel, and the owners of that have poured all kinds of money in there. My office, which was an old menswear store, then it was Citizens Press. We refurbished that old building. The church is well kept, so that the corner is a really great corner where it always kind of had that eyesore. So, but those things grow. I mean, if you look at downtown Port Colborne and the number of businesses that take advantage of our facade program and the revitalization of a lot of businesses down there, it's been great. So, we're a booming downtown. We have very little vacancy rate in our downtown core. We've got some great new businesses. We've got great businesses that have been established for some of them over 100 years. So it bodes well. Our West Street is full, and it's always expanding and improving. The newest building that'll be going up there within the next year or so will be the Rankin Construction condo unit on the old Marsh property.
Right.
So that's going to really make West Street bounce. They're going to have a retail, restaurant, main floor, and then the condos above. So it's all improvements to Port Colborne, and it's great. We're looking forward to all this.
Revitalization. Sounds
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
We're going to have to end things right there. I want to thank Barbara Butters, Regional Councilor for Port
welcome.
Colborne. Thanks for coming out today. And Mayor Bill Steele, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
You've been watching Open Mic on Giant TV Niagara. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.